Hi, I'm Sam and welcome back to my M2. It is coming up to 10,000 miles now, so I thought I would do a bit of a review of what my thoughts are and a little bit of comparison to the car I had previously, that my RS3. Right, just start off with things as I see them. Interior, it's nice. I am much more used to the aesthetics and stuff than when I first got the car, because I hadn't had a BMW before, so loads of little things that annoyed me. For example, the tiny little speedometer on the bottom. But that sort of stuff doesn't really annoy me anymore because I'm used to it. But the interior finish and feel is decent, but it's not as good as the Audi. That's just the case. But it doesn't really bother me that much. And the main reason I swapped was for the drivetrain, or more importantly, rear wheel drive. If you try and compare this engine to, let's say, an RS3, the RS3 engine is phenomenal. It's got more power, sounds better, but the engine in this car is 370 horsepower. You can chip them and change the output to about 410, 4 something, with if you do like all the mods, so exhaust, etc., and all that sort of stuff. But I actually bought a kit to do it, and then decided not to fit it in the end because I realised that actually I don't use that sort of part of the car. Like, I don't miss more power. I've driven this car quite a lot on track. It's really fun on track. It's really fun. It's not like any of the race cars I've driven or anything like that, but if driven properly, it's such a balanced car. It has the really good balance of power to grip. So if you just want to slide around like a madman, you can't just put your foot down. You have to drive around it. You have to get the car on the edge, like dancing up a little bit, and then give it more power before the back end slides. And that initially sort of annoyed me, but then the more I drove the car, the more I got used to it, the more I realised that actually it was just making me a better driver driving this car on track, rather than just getting more power and making it easier. That was a really good way of teaching me to drive the car better. It's just not having too much power. And I've been to quite a few days, and most of the time this car is one of the quicker cars on track. I've obviously something like a GT3 RS would be faster. It's an exceptionally capable car on track, and it's a lot of fun. You can just slide it around, whatever. And it's such a playful, well-balanced thing on track. Moving on to doing the track stuff. So I've probably been to 6 track days with this car, something like that. There's been a couple of things that have annoyed me, a couple of things that probably need sorting out. First of all, first track day I did brakes. Brakes were shocking. So I was at Bedford Autodrome, which is quite a high, like heavy braking track, and I asked around on the forums and stuff like that, and you get people that say like, oh, you never need to change the brakes, I drive at the Nürburgring. Well, the Nürburgring doesn't use brakes that heavily. There's lots of high speed, fast stuff which allows you lots of cooling for your brakes, whereas if you're doing some sort of high speed circuit that has heavy braking zones, it's very different. And Bedford Autodrome, I could do about 3 laps before the pedal started going like super long, and you don't want to feel like you're destroying the car. But what I did after that is I did pads, lines, and fluid. So I put in SRF, CRF, SRF racing fluid, which basically raises the boiling point significantly on the fluid that's in the lines. And then braided hoses, I just did it because I was doing the whole thing. That reduces a little bit of like flex and like squash in the brake lines. And then the pads I had a few different suggestions, but most of the ones that people suggested, like the Pagid RS, I can't remember what they're called, something, but they squeal and squeak a lot, and I really wanted to avoid having a car, because this is my daily driver and I use it all the time, and I don't want squeaky brakes. So even though at the moment it's got slightly squeaky brakes, so what I fitted some Ferodo DS 2500 pads, which is like a halfway to like an endurance pad type thing. It's a much more performance bias than this standard pad, but it's not crazy solid like a lot of racing and endurance pads. And what that I think has been giving me about a happy medium. At Bedford, I went back out, and in that setup, I could probably do 8 laps or something like that. And the difference between when the pedal started going long and when it started coming back, so if you back out of it for a couple of corners or half a lap, your pedals like it's come back. So that was about right for me. Suspension. Now, I've always sort of, the suspension of this car has annoyed me, mainly because I do a lot of miles, not a lot of miles, but a lot of time in town and British B roads and all that sort of stuff, and it's quite sort of jiggly, and you go over any kind of bumps, and it's almost like I would say it's just too stiff or too highly dampened, and the car just sort of like jiggles around like this, which is kind of fun but kind of annoying, because I've been in so many other cars where, like my GT3 RS for example, the car is firm but the damping is really good, and it allows you to keep your foot in it for longer, whereas it gets a bit skittish as the car is at the moment. So finally, about a week or 2 weeks ago, I've changed the suspension, and I managed to get a second-hand set of Bilstein B16 suspension, which is a coils dampers setup type scenario. The dampers are adjustable and ride height is adjustable. We've fitted that, we've made it a little bit lower, about 1 centimetre, 10 mil, front and rear, just because of I was going to have it standard ride height, but just because of the way the adjusters are on that setup, if you want to change it again, if you wind it all the way back to stock, you basically can't adjust it again without removing the whole suspension. So that's given us a little bit of drop in the car, which helps that stance. It looks a bit nicer, but at the moment I've got it just set on the softest setting, and around town it is so much better. Like it is definitely better. Higher speed stuff, I need to stiffen it up a little bit. I haven't done that yet, but it's if I was to drive on a track day, for example, I would probably change it to the middle settings, so it goes out of 10, so 5.5 or something like that, and then play with it to get the balance of the car and that sort of stuff. But I'm very happy with the setup. I don't know whether I would have spent the full amount of money on it. I think I'm not 100% sure what retail is. There's definitely some very good deals on them. You can get them. I think you can get them for about £2,000. But yeah, I paid about £1,000. It's something that I put off doing for a very long time, because I figured, are you okay with the standard setup? Money you spend on mods is money down the drain, and I just sort of got to the end of the point where I thought I'd try it and get the car a little bit lower. I got a good price. Someone was selling their kit and they sent me a message, and then I went for it. But I'm happy with it, but I was also kind of happy. It's definitely better for my usage now, it being able to be softer. It's just much nicer around town, but I wouldn't necessarily shoot out and go, you bought the car, you have to do suspension. If you're going to do track work, you've got to do the brakes and just pads. You don't have to change the brakes to any other brake discs or anything. I think my discs need skimming. They're probably starting to get warped, but I've done quite a lot of track day stuff in this car now, so the next thing would probably be discs. But if I can avoid it, I'm going to avoid it, because that's money you don't get back when you sell the car. Doing mileage, motorway mileage, I've done quite a few long trips. I've been down to Spa, one of the GL endurance, the Peugeot Auto events down in France and stuff like that. Does motorway stuff all right. Like MPG on the motorway is about 31 at sort of sensible speed. It's about that. It's not super efficient, it's not super inefficient. It's about what I expected. It would be nice if it was a bit better, but not too bad really. What's the it like around town? Well, the stock car is too stiff. It's, like I said before, it's a bit jiggly. It's kind of like, it's a bit annoying how stiff it is, but it's perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine. The things, you know, just like speed bumps, no problem. You just got to slow down, and in comparison to the other cars I own, it's fine. I can just cruise over speed bumps. I don't have to do like the left, right, or anything like that. So it's quite a good ride height. The boot, I filled the boot up with tons of stuff. You can put the seats down. I've had skis in here. I've basically used it a ton. Versus the RS3, that is something that is slightly annoying. The coupe boot, so the way the boot lid, it has a boot lid and it goes up like that, versus the hatchback of the RS3. The RS3, you can open it all the way up, chuck all your stuff in, job done. Whereas this, quite often, I'm sort of like trying to get stuff underneath the gap. So that, I do miss that a little bit, but the overall, like the looks of this car, I love the looks of the car. The stance is amazing. It looks like a sports car. It looks mean. In the colour I've got, this silver, I'll just put it up and there. I can't remember what it's called at the moment, but I think it looks awesome. Everyone goes for the Long Beach blue, which is a cool colour, but it's too sort of, it's a bit bright for me, for what I wanted for this car. I did the grills. I've done black grills and black badges on the side. That is a really easy procedure to do. You literally just pop out, once you've worked out how, pop out the grill, the existing grill, and you can just change the silver part of it. You just pop that out, and then you can put a black bit in, so then black. And I think that, and then the badges on the side, same with the badges on the side, you don't have to remove the whole badge and put a new badge on, even though when you buy them they come as that. You can actually just pop the silver bit off it, just like pry it off with a little prying tool, something that won't scratch it, and the sort of aluminium silver part of it just pops off, and you can just push, like press fit the black bit on top. I think I've sort of forgotten what it looks like without, but all M cars I think should have black grills. The wheels, one of the wheels is chipped actually, and I haven't been in the gravel or anything like that, but one of the rims has got a little chip in it. Bought another one on a parking day one of the car. That was horrific. I pulled into this space and I didn't realise that to the left of me there was basically a curb where I was stopping the car that stuck out at 90 degrees, but I couldn't see it. So when I reversed out, I got the front wheel, which you can fix these things now, but that really was day one. Steering, what's the steering like? It's good. It's pretty decent. Like, I can feel quite a lot. I don't have a problem when I'm on track with trying to work out how much grip. It just sort of works. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's definitely not, it's not a problem. It's a non-issue, I would say. Sound system's decent enough. Not amazing, not bad, decent enough. I would say at the moment I'm about to go onto a motorway, and one of the things I notice is road noise. Now, quite a bit comes in comparison to, let's say, you're just in a big heavy saloon or something like that, but it's sort of similar to, I'd say, to most cars. It's got slightly fatter tyres, so there's a bit more tyre noise. One of the things that took me some getting used to is just BMW stuff. It's the way like the aircon works. So you can put it on auto, and then you can like turn the fan like up and down on auto. I hadn't come across that before. I thought set it at 21 or whatever, but then you can have it less blowy or more blowy. That actually, now I've got used to it, is quite a good feature. Okay, one final topic. Manual. See, I have the DCT, which suits me perfectly. I do not regret them having a manual one bit. If this was my sporty car, or it was only one car, I would 100% have a manual. But this is the car that I use day to day, around town. motorways, hungover, all of the things, and it just does it pretty well. It's not the most sensitive and responsive gearbox at low speed, so if you're doing manoeuvring, it takes a little bit of time if you go between reverse and drive for it to sort of engage. But other than that, it works really well. On track, I have no problems with it whatsoever. It's not super fast, but at the same time, it sort of does okay. Sometimes when you're trying to change down, and if you pull it a couple of times, it's a bit of a weight to change down. I think that's more of it's not super responsive in that regard, but it just sort of does the job really well. It's not as involving. It is nice having 3 pedals, but it suits my needs perfectly, so don't regret that one bit. Would recommend an automatic. If you're looking for an automatic, you're looking for an automatic. If you're looking for a manual, you're looking for a manual. Luckily, this car comes in both options, and that suits different people. Hope that was interesting to the ones that are looking at M2s or that sort of thing. If you've got any questions, fire them in the comments below, and I'll try and get back to you. I would say I've basically used this car for all the things that one can use a car for, and it's pretty good. I thought about getting a competition. Should I upgrade? And I decided that the price difference for a current M2 owner, I've already taken some depreciation on the car. The things I use the car for, it's much better if it's obviously I don't want to have lost the money, but now that it's worth less, when I take it on track, it's worth less. So if there was a total loss scenario, that would be less of an impact. Now I don't drive like that or suspect that to happen, but just in the back of my mind, I'm now aware that I'm driving a £36,000 car rather than a new M2 competition would be 50. And I think if I was going to pay 50, I would be probably looking at other cars. But if that's the car for you, fair play. This car sounds better, doesn't have the OPF filter and the engine, but the only part of the other car that I would like is the more raucous engine, in the terms of a significant chunk more torque and a significant chunk more horsepower. So that would be kind of fun, but then also there's loads of other cars that could fit that mold. But for me, I think this M2 is going to stay for a while, at least probably another year, maybe longer, unless something radical changes or happens. But until then, I love it.